Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudire Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. So, continuing with the discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, chapter 9, the passing away of Bhishmadev in the presence of Lord Krishna. Text 8 onwards. Anya cha munyo brahman brahmarata amala shishya rupeta jagmu kashyapangi angirasadaya. And many others like Shukdev Goswami and other purified souls, Kashyap and Angiras and others, all accompanied by their respective disciples, arrived there. Now Prabhupada gives descriptions about the other rishis. Shukdev Goswami is also known as Brahmarat, the famous son and disciple of Shivyasadev, who taught him first the Mahabharata and then Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukdev Goswami recited 1.4 million verses of Mahabharata in the councils of Gandharvas, Yakshas, and Rakshasas. Now, somebody will say, why Rakshasa? Why the Rakshas had to listen to Mahabharata from Shukdev Goswami? Actually, some place, maybe when we go further, we'll study that all these Rakshas, they live in subterranean planets, below Earth. But in their capabilities wise, like the body wise, the strength wise, they're all superior to us human beings living on Earth. Because that's why Rakshas could fight directly with the demigods, Devtas. So until they are very superior in strength and brain also, they cannot fight with the demigods, and many times they defeat them. So Rakshasas are also superior in strength. So we on the earth, we are the only ones. We are we are like the weaklings of the whole universe. So Shukdev Goswami recited Mahabharata to Rakshasas also. And he recited Srimad Bhagavatam for the first time in the presence of Maharaj Parikshit. He thoroughly studied all the Vedic literatures from his great father. Thus, he was a completely purified soul by dint of his extensive knowledge in the principles of religion. From Mahabharata Shabdaparva, it is understood that he was also present in the royal assembly of Maharaj Yudhishthir and at the fasting of Maharaj Parikshit. As a bona fide disciple of Shivyasadev, he inquired from his father very extensively about religious principles and spiritual values, and his great father also satisfied him by teaching him the yoga system by which one can attain the spiritual kingdom. And he taught him the difference between fruitive work and empiric knowledge, the ways and means of attaining spiritual realization, 4 ashrams, the sublime position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the process of seeing Him face to face, the bona fide candidate for receiving knowledge, the consideration of the 5 elements, the unique position of intelligence, the consciousness of the material nature and the living entity. So many things Vedvyas taught Shukdev Goswami. Sometimes he went to the sun planet with the permission of his father and Naradji. So Shukdev Goswami went to sun planet also. All this description is given in different scriptures. He is known by different names like Aranya, Aruni Sutta, Vyasaki, and Vyas Atmaja. So his mother's name or Vyasdev's wife's name is Aruni. Because this name doesn't come anywhere else, just in this purport Prabhupada is writing. Kashyap Muni, one of the Prajapatis, the son of Marichi and one of the sons-in-law of Prajapati Daksha. He is a father of the gigantic bird Garuda, who was given elephants and tortoises as eatables. He married 13 daughters of Prajapati Daksha, and their names are Aditi, Diti, Danu, Kashtha, Arishta, Surasa, Ila, Muni, Krodavasha, Tamra, Surabhi, Sarama, and Timi. He begot many children, both demigods and demons, by those wives. From his first wife, Aditi, all the 12 Adityas were born. One of them is Vaman, the incarnation of Godhead. This great sage Kashyap was also present at the time of Arjun's birth. He received a presentation of the whole world from Parshuram, and later on, he asked Parshuram to go out of the world. His other name is Arishtanemi. He lives on the northern side of the universe. So, Parshuram, when he killed all the Kshatriyas, because he was a Brahmin, so he gave the whole land to Kashyap Muni after winning the whole land from the Kshatriyas. And Kashyap Muni then had to ask him to leave the world, get out of here, so that he could do the administration properly. Because he himself was a Brahmin, so he had to give the administration to some other Kshatriyas. But they were afraid of Parshuram. So Parshuram then threw his axe with which he was killing the Kshatriyas in the sea. And with that axe, when it fell into the sea, a piece of land came up. Because that wasn't given to Kashyap Muni to begin with, so it didn't belong to Kashyap Muni. And that piece of land joined with the rest of the land. And that piece of land is right now, which we know as Kerala. So that was formed by the axe of Parshuramji. So then Parshuramji went to Kerala on a mountain, I think it's Mahindra Parvat there, and he is eternally doing tapasya over there. So wonderful stories we have. Angirasa, he is a son of Maharash Angira and is known as Brihaspati, the priest of the demigods. It is said that Dronacharya was his partial incarnation. Shukracharya was the spiritual master of the demons, and Brihaspati challenged him. So Brihaspati is the priest of the demigods, and Shukracharya is the priest of the demons. His son is Kacha, and he delivered the fire weapon first to Bharadwaj Muni. He begot 6 sons like the fire god by his wife Chandramasi and one of the reputed stars. He could travel in space, and therefore he could present himself even in the planets of Brahmaloka and Indraloka. He advised the king of heaven, Indra, about conquering the demons. Once he cursed Indra, who thus had to become a hog on the earth and was unwilling to return to heaven. Such is the power of the attraction of illusory energy. Even a hog does not wish to part with his earthly possessions in exchange for a heavenly kingdom. He was a religious preceptor of the natives of different planets. So, the Brihaspati. Brihaspati is actually also the spiritual guru of Bhishmadev. Bhishmadev learned all the Vedas from Brihaspati. So that's why Brihaspati was also there. Text 9. Tan sametan mahabhagan uplabhya vasuttamaha pujyamas dharmagyo deshakal vibhagavit. Bhishmadev, who was the best among the 8 Vasus, received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there, for he knew perfectly all the religious principles according to time and place. Now just see the position of Bhishmadev. Although he is on the bed of arrows, now we know that, but he still received and welcomed all the great and powerful rishis who were assembled there. So that how wonderful etiquettes Bhishmadev had. Expert religionists know perfectly well how to adjust religious principles in terms of time and place. All the great acharyas or religious preachers or reformers of the world executed the mission by adjustment of religious principles in terms of time and place. There are different climates and situations in different parts of the world, and if one has to discharge his duties to preach the message of the Lord, he must be expert in adjusting things in terms of the time and place. Bhishmadev was one of the 12 great authorities in preaching this cult of devotion service, and therefore he could receive and welcome all the powerful sages assembled there at his deathbed from all parts of the universe. He was certainly unable at that time to welcome and receive them physically because he was neither at his home nor in a normal healthy condition. But he was quite fit by the activities of his sound mind, and therefore he could utter sweet words with hearty expressions, and all of them were well received. One can perform one's duty by physical work, by mind, and by words. So Bhishmadev could not just get up from his bed of arrows and or he could receive them by physically. So but by his mind and words, he received all the sages who came there. कृष्णं च तत्प्रभावज्ञ आसीनं जगदीश्वरं हृदिस्थं पूज्यमास माययोपात विग्रहम्. Lord Shri Krishna is situated in everyone's heart, yet he manifests his transcendental form by his internal potency. This very Lord was sitting before Bhishmadev, and since Bhishmadev knew of his glories, he worshipped him duly. So Bhishmadev knew who Krishna is. The Lord's omnipotence is displayed by his simultaneous presence in every place. He is present always in his eternal abode, Golok Vrindavan, and still he is present in everyone's heart and even within every invisible atom. When he manifests his eternal transcendental form in the material world, he does so by his internal potency. The external potency or the material energy has nothing to do with his eternal form. All these truths were known to Shri Bhishmadev, who worshipped him accordingly. So even while lying on the bed of arrows, he worshipped Krishna also. Panduputran upasinan prashreya prem sangatan abhyachashtanuragash charan dhibhutena chakshusha. The sons of Maharaj Pandu were sitting silently nearby, overtaken with affection for their dying grandfather. Seeing this, Bhishmadev congratulated them with feeling. There were tears of ecstasy in his eyes, for he was overwhelmed by love and affection. Although Arjun was the one who put him on the bed of arrows, and he was fighting against all these Pandavas, but still, because they had won, Bhishmadev was very happy. When Maharaj Pandu died, his sons were all small children, and naturally they were brought up under the affection of elder members of the royal family, especially by Bhishmadev. Later on, when the Pandavas were grown up, they were cheated by cunning Duryodhana and company, and Bhishmadev, although he knew that the Pandavas were innocent and were unnecessarily put into trouble, could not take the side of the Pandavas for political reasons. At the last stage of his life, when Bhishmadev saw his most exalted grandsons, headed by Maharaj Yudhishthira, sitting very gently at his side, the great warrior grandfather could not check his loving tears, which were automatically flowing from his eyes. He remembered the great tribulation suffered by his most pious grandsons. Certainly, he was the most satisfied man because of Yudhishthir's being enthroned in place of Duryodhana, and thus he began to congratulate him. Aho kashtam aho anyayam yadyuyam dharmanandana jivitum naharta klishtam vipri dharma chitashreya. Bhishmadev said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls had to suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmins, God, and religion." See, Bhishmadev is saying, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and terrible injustices you good soul had to suffer for being the sons of religion personified." So every righteous person or every devotee has to go through all these so-called troubles and injustices. Maharaj Yudhishthira was disturbed due to the great massacre in the battle of Kurukshetra. Bhishmadev could understand this. And therefore, he first spoke of the terrible sufferings of Maharaj Yudhishthira. He was put into difficulty by injustice only, and the battle of Kurukshetra was fought just to counteract this injustice. Therefore, he should not regret the great massacre. He wanted to point out particularly that they were always protected by the Brahmins, the Lord, and the religious principles. As long as they were protected by these three important items, there was no cause of disappointment. Thus, Bhishmadev encouraged Maharaj Yudhishthira to dissipate his despondency. As long as a person is fully in cooperation with the wishes of the Lord, guided by the bona fide Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and strictly following religious principles, one has no cause for despondency. So, this is the point Bhishmadev wanted to impress upon them. Because they were protected. Why they were protected? Because they followed the religious path, they worship the Brahmins, and they worship the Supreme Lord. So they were always protected, no matter how many tribulations they had to go through. Sansite ati rathe pando pritha bala prajavadhu yushmat krite bahun choshan bahun kleshan prapta lokvati muhu. As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great General Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children. Therefore, she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions. The sufferings of Kunti Devi are doubly lamented. She suffered greatly because of her early widowhood, and to get her minor children brought up in the royal family, and especially when the people of royal family, they were against the children, they would try to kill the children. So her sufferings continued. This means that she was destined to suffer by providence. Well, it wasn't destiny, it was because she was a devotee of Krishna. So Krishna wanted to glorify her, actually. Sarvam kala kritam manne bhavatam cha yad priyam sapalo yadvashe loko vayurev ghanavalihi. In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind. There is control by time all over the space within the universe, as there is control by time all over the planets. All the big, gigantic planets, including the sun, are being controlled by the force of air, as the clouds are carried by the force of air. Similarly, the inevitable kal or time controls even the action of the air and other elements. Everything, therefore, is controlled by Supreme Kal, a forceful representative of the Lord within the material world. Thus, Yudhishthira should not be sorry for the inconceivable action of time. So, Bhishmadev first is saying it was because of time only that you suffered. It was inevitable. Even the most pious has to suffer the conditions of material nature. But a pious man is faithful to the Lord, for he is guided by the bona fide Brahman and Vaishnava, following the religious principles. These three guiding principles should be the aim of life. One should not be disturbed by the tricks of eternal time. Even the great controller of the universe, Brahmaji, is also under the control of time. So time controls everything, but time actually is what? Energy of the Lord. So indirectly, it's Krishna only who controls everything. Yatra dharma suto raja gada panir vrikodaraha Krishnostri gandivam chapam surit Krishnastato vipat. Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion? Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjun with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all, the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas. As far as the material or spiritual resources are required, there was no scarcity in the case of the Pandavas. Materially, they were all well equipped because two great warriors, namely Bhima and Arjun, were there. Spiritually, the king himself was a symbol of religion. And above all of them, the personality of God and Lord Shri Krishna was personally concerned with their affairs as a well-wisher. And yet, there were so many reverses on the side of the Pandavas. Despite the power of pious acts, the power of personalities, the power of expert management, and the power of weapons, under the direct supervision of Lord Krishna, the Pandavas suffered so many practical reverses, which can only be explained as due to the influence of Kal, the inevitable time. Kal is identical with the Lord himself. Just like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, I am Kal, I am time, Kalo Asmi. So there is nothing to be lamented when a matter is beyond the control of any human being. If it is already all controlled by Krishna in the form of time, what can we do anyway? So we don't need to lament. And especially when, like in Krishna says in 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, that I am the well-wishing friend of everybody. Bhaktaram yagatapsam sarvalok maheshram suridam sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. When people understand I am the most well-wishing friend of everybody, the person is at peace. He doesn't get disturbed. Because my best friend, and he is the enjoyer of everything, he's a controller of everything, he's a proprietor of everything, and he's my best friend. Why I have to worry about anything? He will take care of me. That's what the friends do. So here, Pandavas, because they were completely dependent on Krishna, although outwardly they went through so much, and it was not easy for them, especially after when the game of dice, when they were humiliated, the wife was attempted to be disrobed, and they were treated like servants. And afterwards, 13 years they had to live in forest, and 1 year in incognito afterwards. And in incognito, when uh, they were living as menial servants. Although Maharaj Yudhishthira was the king of the whole world, but for 1 year he had to live as a servant. So that was very terrible for them. And Draupadi, they all lived as a servant. Draupadi was a maid servant of the queen. And of all of them, Arjun had to live as a eunuch for 1 year. He's a mighty warrior and he had to live as a eunuch. But they all had full faith in Krishna. So yes, outwardly they underwent so many tribulations, but inwardly they were all content, all satisfied. Nahyasya karhi chidrajan puman ved vidichitam yad vijikhyasya yukta muriyanti kavyo apihi. O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord, Shri Krishna. Even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered. It's very difficult to know what Krishna wants. We know what we want, but we don't know what Krishna wants. The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhishthira over his past sinful acts and the resultant sufferings, etc., is completely negated by the great authority Bhishma. Bhishma wanted to impress upon Maharaj Yudhishthira that since time immemorial, no one, including such demigods as Shiva and Brahma, could ascertain the real plan of the Lord. So, what can we understand about it? It's useless also to inquire about it. Even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is simply to abide by the orders of the Lord without argument. So that's the best policy. But since we are given this little intelligence by Krishna, we always want to argue and work against the plans of the Lord. Of course, first of all, we don't know what the plan of the Lord is. But we add our own intelligence, our own brain in it. That's where we make the mess. The sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. See, Prabhupada writing, suffering of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds, never due to their own karma. The Lord had to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. Bhishmadev was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue, and he was glad to see King Yudhishthir on the throne, although he himself fought against him. Even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra because the Lord wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue, regardless of who tries to execute it. See, the last line, I'll read it later. Many times we argue why Bhishmadev fought against the Pandavas, why he had to fight on the side of Duryodhana. Although Prabhupada gave different reason before it, that Bhishmadev was indebted to Duryodhana and Dhritarashtra for maintaining him. But that wasn't the real reason. The real reason was Bhishmadev is a Mahajan. He's one of the 12 Mahajans, he's one of 12 great authorities mentioned in the scriptures. And being such a Mahajan, being a great devotee of the Lord, he knew the heart of Krishna. He knew what Krishna wants. He knew what the plan of Krishna is. And Krishna's plan was, even if it's a fighter like Bhishmadev, who had defeated Parshuramji, who had all the knowledge of scriptures from Brihaspati, who had this benediction that he won't die unless until he wanted to leave the body, who could not be defeated by anybody. Even if such a person is against my devotee, Arjun, he will vanish. He will be defeated. So Bhishmadev knew Krishna's plan. This is what Krishna wants. And because he is fully surrendered soul, so he said, okay, I'll take up this service, which will be very bad for my reputation, but it's okay, because this is what Krishna wants. If this is what pleases Krishna, he says, I'll do it. That is surrender. That is bhakti. And that's why gopis are considered the topmost devotees, because they're ready to do anything for Krishna. They're not even willing to, they are even willing to give up their own reputation, their own chastity, only for the pleasure of Krishna. And this is what Bhishmadev is doing. And Prabhupada writes, Bhishmadev was a great devotee of the Lord, but he chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to show that a fighter like Bhishma cannot win on the wrong side. So even a fighter like Bhishma could not win, so what to speak of the other little bitty fighters on Kaurva side? They definitely couldn't win. So this was the plan of the Lord. This is what he wanted to prove to the world. So I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments. Wow, no questions. That's good. I guess everybody is preparing for Saturday's Japa marathon. So everybody is saving energy for that. That is good. Thank you. Thank you, Radha Prabhu. So I guess we can stop here. You all have a wonderful day, thinking of the character of Bhishmadev. And we'll see you all tomorrow. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.